creative living, utilizing today's technology with the best of the past to bring you innovative ideas and up-to-date information for creative lifestyles in today's active world. With your host, Sheryl Borden.
Thanks so much for joining me today for Creative Living. We're going to discuss who needs to be on our remodeling team before we undertake the project. We'll talk about foods that feed your brain and show some ways to redo a teen's bedroom on a budget. One of my guests is Jenny Roush, and she's an interior designer from Brentwood, Missouri. Jenny will explain why it's important to hire the right team when doing a remodeling project. She'll explain who typically makes up a good team and share some of her thoughts about undertaking such a project. Her business is Carbit Kitchen and Design. Another guest is Elizabeth Somer, and she's a registered dietitian and author. Elizabeth is going to give us the lowdown on what foods and nutrients can help protect your brain and keep you smart today and down the road. She's part of the Beautiful Minds program, which she'll talk about, and she lives in Salem, Oregon. And if you have a teenager at home who wants to redo their room, Bruce Johnson will explain how to do this on a budget. He says the environmentally friendly bedroom redo just features soap and water cleanup. Bruce is the spokesperson for Minwax in Upper Saddle River, New Jersey. Bruce, we've both raised teenagers and gone through those years where they change their mind about the time the paint's dried on the first finish of furniture. But we thought we might talk about what do you do in that case? You don't want something that's an antique from Grandma, but you want them to have an individualized room for their privacy.
Yep, I've been through it there, and you're exactly right. You know, I love antiques, but you don't dare put, like you said, an heirloom set in a teenager's room and then come to find out there's decals put on it or all sort of fingernail polish remover spilled on it. So, and new furniture is expensive. So we got to hunt for something in between. And that's where unfinished furniture comes in. And, you know, I'm a real fan of unfinished furniture because that way you and your teenager get to pick out the color you're going to use. And the great thing about the water-based color stains is that you get lots of color choices.
You do, and it's easy to put on and it dries fast. That's
so
what
fast.
I like.
Yeah, and no fumes. And so, you know, the project's over by the time they figured out that they're actually doing something with their parents. So what we've done here today is we're setting up like a boy's bedroom here. You know, we've got our colors here, our blue and our green.
Much like surfing, I would assume from the pictures.
Surfing bedroom here for this boy. And it's great stuff here because it's made of real wood. We got something to work with, so we know it's going to be durable. And it's going to be easy to do because, like you said, we're using water-based. And our concept here is we've got our headboard, which I've partially stained in Deep Ocean, which is one of our shades of blue.
It almost it makes you think you've painted it, but these are really stained, so you get to see the wood grain.
Still get to see the grain of the wood. You know, that's the thing about paint is that why pay for wood if you're going to paint it and not see the grain? And the nice thing about the stains is you determine how much wood grain you see by how quickly you wipe it off, as I'll show you here. And these little storage cubes, I love them. I've used them in lots of situations, hanging them on the wall. In this case, we've made end tables out of them by putting them together and actually screwing them to the headboard so that it helps keeps it as one unit.
And they don't get knocked over accidentally.
No. But we have to realize when we are working with pine, when we stain pine, it does tend to turn blotchy. You know, it's just the nature of pine. And a lot of our other, what I call the problem hardwoods, alder and aspen, do the same thing. So it's always a good idea anytime they're using a softwood or one of these problem hardwoods to first, you know, just take a foam brush or an inexpensive brush and put on a coat of wood conditioner. And this goes in and it helps seal up like the end grain around the knots. It's going to actually just make the wood absorb the stain more evenly. And that's what we're looking for. So we put that on, and like you said, it's water-based, 5 minutes, that's dry. We give it just a real light sanding because we get a little bit of grain raising, and then we're ready then to put on our stain.
So that one's already been coated with the conditioner.
And on this one, I'm going to do this in antique jade.
Is that the color you used here?
Yep, that's the color.
So you can see how much variance there is.
Yeah, the finished one on the other side. And I'll put this on with our foam brush. You can also put it on with a rag or with a regular synthetic bristle brush. But you brush it on, and like I say, this is so easy that's why you want to make sure that, you know, get the family involved in this. And you just straighten out your brush marks there. And like I said, the more that you want the green to dominate, the more you put on and the more you leave on before you wipe it off. Because you can let this sit on. If I wanted a real light version of this, I could take my rag right now and just very gently start wiping off the excess. But that just gives me just a hint of it. I want it to be just a little bit darker than that to match the side I did over there. So I'm going to put this back on. And it's always a good idea to test it first. Test it, time it. In this case, it's probably going to be a couple of minutes. I'm going to want to let that soak in before I then come back, wipe it off, and then let it finish drying. And then at that point, like on our headboard here, and we did this in the deep ocean, this is the stain only, but we do need protection on top of that. And since this is a water-based stain, you always want to use a water-based finish.
I've learned.
Yep. If you start with water, you finish with water. And so that's what we're going to do here. And I'm going to take and again, I'm going to be using a synthetic bristle brush.
Could we use one of those foam brushes? Or
I don't like foam brushes for putting the finish on because foam brushes have air inside that foam head. And foam brushes are great for putting on wood conditioner. They're great for putting on a stain. But when it comes time to put on a finish, you can't beat a bristle brush.
And the synthetic is what we want to
Yeah, we want to use the synthetic because if we did use the natural bristle, it would swell up and then we couldn't use it again.
So we use it when we're using oil-based products.
Exactly right. When you're doing oil-based, you go the natural bristle, and when you're using the water-based, you go synthetic. And that way then you can clean out your brush and reuse it, get a lot of uses out of it. And in a case like this, I typically would put 2 coats on of the polyacrylic. Again, it's going to dry very quickly. You can do this whole project in one day.
Wow.
Stain in the morning, have lunch, then put on your finish, and you're done. It's that easy. And like I said, no fumes to worry about, and it'll be over before they know they were actually doing a project with you.
And I like the water-based product because you can clean the brushes. I'm not too good about doing that, so with these it's easy to do.
And we want to be aware of that sort of thing. We want to reuse stuff as often as we can, and brushes are a good way to start.
Okay. Well, thank you. This turns into a really nice-looking bedroom.
Great.
Elizabeth, thank you so much for being with us today. We're going to talk about everything nutrition. I remember that being a very hard subject for me in college, but I certainly believe in eating correctly. You know, I guess we've all heard that statement about you are what you eat. And maybe we should address that because what we eat is really going to make a difference in how we live all of our life.
Well, yes, and especially, and I don't think people always make this connection, but what you eat is having a profound effect on how well you think, not only today, but down the road. You know, 66% of brain aging is entirely within your control, and diet is a huge part of that. There's actually 4 factors that are important for brain health. It's diet, it's staying physically fit or healthy, staying socially connected, and staying mentally engaged, you know, learning new things all the time. And that Beautiful Minds, which is a campaign joint effort between DSM Nutritional Products and the National Center for Creative Aging, is really trying to educate the public on how taking those 4 factors can make a huge impact on not only how well you think today, but whether you end up with dementia in later years.
That's certainly important and something, regardless of our age, we can do something about it right now.
Yes.
I've heard it said that we should eat like a Greek. And of course, I know that means that Mediterranean diet, but what does that consist of, a good Mediterranean diet?
Okay, well, we do know that people that follow the traditional, and I really emphasize traditional Mediterranean diet, have a lower risk for dementia, even Alzheimer's down the road. They think more clearly, they remember better, but we're not talking about the gyro or hero sandwiches that, you know, the Greek food that we have here in the States. The traditional Greek diet has lots of seafood, has a little bit of olive oil, nuts, lots of vegetables, and here's the good news, a little bit of red wine.
Oh, so we should start our meal with that and
a
enjoy that. Well, I've always heard that we should eat fish. Now, where I live, we don't always have, you know, fresh fish readily available, but fish is so important in our diet. What, 2 or 3 times a week?
Yes, in fact, that's what the American Heart Association recommends for your heart. We now know that there are certain fats that are very important for brain health. 60% of the brain is fat, but it's not the kind of fat that we pack onto our hips and thighs.
Oh.
It's structural fat. It makes up the little membranes that surround the billions of brain cells. And the more fluid and flexible those brain cells, those membranes, the better we think today and down the road. In fact, we've got research now showing that when people maintain a healthy brain cells from eating healthy fats, they have a significantly lower risk for dementia, Alzheimer's, even a 50% reduction in depression. Well, the fats that are the most fluid and flexible and make up the healthiest brain cells are the omega-3s.
And in fact, we might take a look. Salmon is such a good example of having the omega-3. Now, some of us tend to think we can get it all through supplements, but I love your definition of a supplement.
Yes, it's a supplement, not a substitute.
Not a substitute.
For healthy eating.
So having certain amount, and like you say, fish is one of the easiest ways to get the omega-3 correct fatty acids in our diet. But what are some of the other examples we need to eat and know it's helping us?
Okay, well, first, I just want to emphasize that it's not all fish. Like, you won't get them in tilapia or shrimp or some of those things. You've got to get fatty fish like salmon, mackerel, herring, sardines, anchovies. How many people eat those? And you need at least 2 or more servings a week. So if you're not eating those kinds of fish, or if you're vegetarian, then you need to look for foods that are fortified with the omega-3 fat DHA.
DHA.
Yeah, 97% of the omega-3s in the brain are DHA, which says a lot about how the brain wants that fat. And you don't get it in flaxseed, you don't get it in walnuts, you don't get it in soy. It's got to be from either seafood or foods that are fortified with that DHA, whether it's Rinaldi spaghetti sauce, or Silk soy milk, or Horizon milk, Mission Life Balanced tortillas. There's a bunch of different products out. Look for, the label will say Life's DHA on it. You know you're doing well then. Or, of course, take a supplement.
And I think the supplement it might be important to note that we don't need to feel guilty if we sort of break our trend someday and not eat everything that's healthy. That's when those supplements can really boost our system.
Exactly. And, you know, just to give you some examples of some of the studies here, there was a recent study from Oxford that when they supplemented children's diets with that DHA, they saw up to a 50% improvement in reading scores.
Wow.
Wow, that's a big
Well,
one.
I've always heard that if people will eat fish before taking a test, you know, the night before taking a test, they do considerably better. It has to do with that DHA.
It does. Hopefully you've been doing it longer than just the night before. There's also been studies on adults. The Midas study looked at seniors and found that those that supplemented with DHA saw a significant improvement in memory. So it's from birth to the last day of your life, making sure that you get enough of that DHA is important.
That's important. And a lot of times we hear more things that we should be eating or not eating, in whichever case, for our heart health. But it seems like what's good for the heart is good for the brain.
That's absolutely true. We're one big package. And that's where the antioxidants come in, because we know that colorful fruits and vegetables loaded with antioxidants help to protect delicate brain tissue, as well as your heart and everything else, from what's called oxidative damage, which is associated with all age-related diseases, including dementia and Alzheimer's. You need at least 8 servings a day of colorful fruits and vegetables, whether it's broccoli, sweet potatoes, red peppers, blueberries, carrots, etc. And it doesn't have to be 8 to 10 different ones. You can just double a serving, but make sure that you're loading every plate with colorful fruits and vegetables.
And it sounds impossible to do, but when you consider most of the time a serving's a half a cup of most things.
Yes, it's not the 3 blueberries in a muffin, however. I've had people tell me they got this, I had a blueberry muffin this morning. No, but it's a half a cup cooked or a cup raw. So if you had a spinach salad, just have 2 cups of spinach. You've got 2 servings right there.
Right there. Get that taken care of.
Yeah.
What about exercise? I have to admit I'm not big on exercise. I know it's important, but how does the exercise relate to everything we've been talking about?
Okay, well, here comes the bad news. If you're really serious about protecting your brain, as well as your heart and your whole body, you have to exercise. Our bodies were designed to move, and it's when we don't move that the system breaks down. The research overwhelmingly shows that people that stay active mentally as well as physically, keep in mind those 4 factors in brain health.
Go over those again.
There were diet, staying physically fit and healthy, staying socially connected and mentally engaged. So physical as well as mental exercise is really important. Those are the people that remember more, problem solve better, stay in cognitive relative shape and are the least likely to develop Alzheimer's and dementia down the road, and have an easier time managing their weight, because keep in mind, being overweight also increases your chance for dementia.
It affects everything else,
It
every other
does.
part of our
Absolutely.
body and our lifestyle. Where can people go for more information?
Well, this Beautiful Minds campaign is so much fun. So you can go online, beautiful-mind.com, to get more information on how to stay mentally sharp today and down the road.
And down the road. Okay, well, Elizabeth, thank you so much for being with us today.
My pleasure.
Jenny, thank you so much for being here. I appreciate you giving us your time, because we're sort of like getting to ask you all the questions that a person getting ready to maybe remodel their home, or planning to, if they're building a new home, maybe how to go about furnishing it, or with the latest appliances and technology and gadgets is what I like to call it. But how do you go about doing all of that? It just seems overwhelming.
Well, I think it's important to hire the right team. It's very important to hire the right team from the beginning.
A team?
Yes.
Who is that?
So it depends on the scope of your project. So contractor, kitchen and bath designer, me, interior designer, architect. So depending on the size and scope of your project, if you're building a new house, you need all 4 of those components. It's very important. It's very important that you find them and that they work well together. If you're doing a smaller project, maybe just a kitchen bath remodel, maybe you just need 1 or 2. At least 2, the contractor, the kitchen and bath designer. So depending on the size and scale, and that, how many you need to find.
Well, you mentioned the architect, but and like a general contractor, when you say a team, would these, say, 4 people, 5 people, depending, be involved through the whole process, or would some just work with you in the beginning and leave the scene? And
So again, it depends on the size. So let's talk about it in terms of house building first.
Okay.
So a lot of times people don't know where to start. And if you're building a house, you obviously need a set of plans. So if you're building a house, you need a set of plans. You're going to go find an architect. Now, I would not get a final set of plans done before you found a contractor and a kitchen and bath designer and talked to an interior designer.
oh, in case they want to suggest changes or
Because an architect's kind of a space planner as a whole, but then you have all these people that specialize and have knowledge in these certain fields. So a contractor's going to know all the parts and pieces of the plans and the permits and the structural part of it, and the kitchen designer's going to know, if you talk to the kitchen designer, they're going to know what your specialty needs are in terms of, okay, you're going to talk to them about diving deep into your kitchen needs and your bathroom needs, and maybe that space isn't quite sufficient. And the interior designer is going to look at that and go and do maybe a furniture plan for you.
like space layout.
Yeah, and so you don't want to spend all of that money up front and have a sealed set of plans without talking to all of these other people to make sure that you've done all of the right things in terms of, where is your lamp going to go, and do you have the right electric there, and where are all your kitchen appliances going to go, and what's the storage going to be before the end game. And a lot of people have their whole set of plans, and then they go start talking to the team. And you want the team to work well together, so it's important that you find a team that's worked together before.
Well, yeah, and I can see when you talk about budgets, I've always heard that doing a kitchen remodel and a bath remodel are the most expensive ones you can do. And I assume that would be true if you're building a house. That's where most of the money is going to go.
It is, and if you think about it, it's because if you're just going to remodel your living room, it's pretty much drywall and paint and some flooring material and baseboards. But in a kitchen or a bathroom, you've got cabinets and countertops and appliances, and there's so many parts and pieces in that space that's very different.
And the plumbing and the electrical.
And everything in that space has to function and work really well together. So I always tell people there's a good chance that you're going to cry during your remodeling. That's why I always have a box of Kleenex on hand.
I wondered what those were here for.
Yes, it's for in case you have to cry during your remodeling process.
Well, and they say it's such a stressful time that for marriages and for family members. And you were saying that you even did some of this when you had small babies, children around.
I did. I went through a remodeling process, and I'm actually still going through it. We bought a house when I was pregnant with twins and had a 2-year-old that was uninhabitable. So we remodeled it top down during that time of my life, and it's very stressful for anyone. And we do that for a living. So in the person that could cry during the process, it might not be the person that's remodeling. It could be me. It could be the kitchen designer. It could be the contractor. It could be anyone. It's just a very stressful time. So.
Well, it is. I think with the internet now, it's so much easier than it used to be, because there are in fact, you brought a couple of ideas of places to go just for ideas.
Yeah, I think everyone should hit Houzz, HOUZZ.com.
Right.
It's a great resource for collecting your ideas for your contractor, for your kitchen designer, for your interior designer.
You can set up your own little file, and every time you see something you like, you could put it in there. And I would think that would be great for someone like you. If I had a whole file saying, I like this, this, this.
You can also put down why you like it. And then you can send it directly to me or your designer.
I see.
It's also a good place to research your kitchen and bath designers or your interior designers. Pinterest is also a good place for that.
So both of those.
Yes, Pinterest is a good place for you to collect ideas. Houzz is a good place for you to research your team. So you can oftentimes find great designers, contractors, landscape architects on Houzz. It's a great place to start.
Well, it sounds like it would be. And the project, in most instances, is going to last quite a while. And I would think that's why you want that team that we don't want them getting mad at each other. We would like to know that everybody's on the same
So whether
plan.
you're building or remodeling, if you remodel a kitchen, it can take 8-12 weeks if you've got rehabbing.
It's dirty, and times it's not pleasant to be there. And this is actually your family going through the process, and this is just dreadful. And there's your little darling girl in the midst of it.
That's Ellie in her future shower, and that's how dirty and messy it can be, the process. So when you're going through something like that, you want to make sure ahead of time. Part of the process of selection should not just be cost or budget. It should be, does my team work well together? Do they communicate well? And do I like them? Because you're going to be around them for a very long period of time. So you want to make sure that they understand you, that they get what you're trying to say, that you can communicate with them, that they can communicate with you, and that they can communicate with each other.
And you mentioned early on about the general contractor. I think sometimes we get so involved and we're so excited as a homeowner that we're going to get a new remodel, we forget about all those boring permits and paperwork that has to be done, and you have to get it approved before you start.
Yeah, and that's the benefit and the value of a good general contractor. He's going to walk you through that, get you through that painlessly. He's going to do that for you. So that's the value of that team. They're there to get you through the process without you really having to deal with any of that. So there is a lot involved in getting through the process, and if they work really well together, you really should just have to answer questions that they ask you and really not have to do anything else.
Oh, that sounds wonderful. But it's obvious that these people are going to be involved in other jobs at the same time. Is that something a person should ask? Like, how often will I have access to you, or do I have to schedule appointments with you just to find out why my bathroom is not going along right?
You should get a feel for that right off the bat and from the beginning. So most of the time your team will make you feel like you're of a priority, and if you in the beginning don't feel like you're important, you'll get, if that's happening right off the bat, don't
need to
hire
fire that
them.
one, get a new one.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, it does make sense, and it's nice when you say, and they'll do the work for you. You have to obviously have your input, but you do want to work well with them. I can see that.
Trust your gut, trust your instincts. I tell people this all the time. If you've got red flags in the very beginning, don't start.
Don't start.
Just go with your gut, your instincts, and don't start that project if you have any bad feelings about that team from the beginning, because it's not going to get better.
And word of mouth in your own community can quickly let you know if someone's had problems. They were not accessible as often as you'd want them to be. So you do need to do a lot of research, whether it's online or within your community, I bet.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you so much.
Thanks
this has
for
really
having
been
me.
interesting. I'm glad you are surviving your process.
We are. We're surviving. Even with little kids, we're surviving.
I hope you enjoyed the show today. Next time on Creative Living, we'll learn how to cook with store-bought wonton wrappers and learn the tricks and techniques for making a quilt in 90 minutes. Can you believe it? One of my next guests is a chef, and he's going to demonstrate how to use store-bought wonton wrappers to make salmon dumplings, as well as a delicious and easy-to-make dessert. Another guest is an author, designer, and quilter, and she's going to show step-by-step instructions for making a 90-minute quilt. The secret to this technique is that the piecing and quilting is done at the same time. Both of these topics will be featured on the next Creative Living show. If you ever have comments or suggestions or ideas for shows, you can email me at sheryl.borden@enmu.edu. I'd also like to ask you to become a fan of Creative Living on Facebook. Just go to facebook.com and in the search window, type in Creative Living with Sheryl Borden. Thanks so much, and I hope you'll plan to join me next time for Creative Living.
We're very pleased to offer a new booklet that accompanies this series of Creative Living. This booklet is titled the 6800 Series, and it features a wonderful collection of ideas and information. And it's available free of charge on our website. Posted as a PDF file, you can simply download the entire booklet or just the segments you're most interested in. For your copy of this new booklet, go to our website at KENW.org and then click on Creative Living. Scroll down to the booklet section and you can click on the booklet or on any of the other booklets we have available online. We'd also like to invite you to sign up for our free e-newsletter. Just go to KENW.org and click on the Sign Up Now button and input your email address. Thank you.